There's no right or wrong way to do this and express those gifts. You just have to express them, because if you don't, they will show up in your body energetically and they live in your body. Hi, welcome back. It's Jessica Diana here. As you join me for my second episode, today we're going to be exploring your gifts, my gifts, our gifts, and everything that it has to do with having those come online for us. A lot of times when we think about gifts, we think that it's only available to certain types of people, like celebrities or athletes or anyone that's kind of invisible spotlight, right? But our gifts are actually things that we do naturally that we don't even think about. It's like second nature, right? So sometimes, like, we just like the thing that you wake up and you do so easily, that is your gift. For myself, I have mystical gifts also on top of all the other gifts that I have from my corporate experience, dance, being an artist, drawing. But I also have an array of mystical gifts that I wanted to share with you as we embark on this journey together and this podcast together. You can understand where a lot of my wisdom is coming from. A lot of it is lived experience, practice of my gifts, and just kind of embodying them. So my gifts started around the age of 5. It's the first time I actually remembering seeing, speaking, and embodying and being around angels. I would have this reoccurring dream of my mother floating in front of me as I was sitting on a bench and I was outside in the park, and she was floating in front of me in this white dress with wings. And I kind of always knew that she would pass away like at an early age. I mean, she passed away 9 years ago. So it wasn't so early, but early enough, and that she would be my earth angel. And my mother and I, growing up, didn't have the best relationship until like 8 or 9 years before she passed away. But as I activated my gifts a lot more the past, probably, I would say the last 15 years, once she passed away, we've also been able to communicate on the other side. So my gifts include connecting with angels, mediumship, which is not something that I do with clients. It's not something I'm interested in doing. But a lot of times our sacred ancestors want to pop through and give a message. I'm happy to share. I also channel your higher self, your soul, my higher self, my soul. Also, in terms of clairs, so when we think of mystical gifts, a lot of like intuition has to do with our clairs, and I'll get into that in another episode. But just to kind of quickly explain them right now, there's claircognizant, clairaudience, clairsentience, and clairvoyance. A lot of people know clairvoyance. So I have all 4 of them. There's some that are stronger than the others. So my 2 strongest ones are claircognizant. So clear knowing. I know these things. I don't know how I know them, but I just do. Clairaudience has been my strongest gift as well. And that's clear hearing. So I get a lot of messages through just actually hearing the words come through my channel, through my ear canal, and also through music. And I would say that's like the strongest too. And then I also have clairvoyance. I get a lot of visions. I see people's auras. I can see different auras, different angel auras. That's how I see them, as well as I get a lot of visions and premonitions in my dreams. And then there's sentience, so clear feeling. So just getting a gut feeling, listening to that feeling. And we'll get into this in another episode of really discovering that. So those are like some of my mystical gifts, but I want to share that with you that we all have gifts. We all have them, and it requires practice to use them. It requires patience. It requires kind of really tuning in and using your intuition to kind of be in that self-discovery, that curiosity mode. So when we think of children, we think of them, they're so easy to tap into their imagination, to tap into that other side. One day they're a superhero, the next day they're a princess, the next day they're on another planet, the next day they're into something else. And between the ages of 0 to 12 years old is actually when we have the most, our gifts and connection to the other side is really turned on. We're able to really see things and really be in our connection to divinity, God, source, energy, right? And we're able to tap into those kind of mystical gifts per se. So, like my niece, my, I call him my brother-in-law for the sake, but it's my husband's cousin. And she's, always talking about, she's 4 now, and she's always talking about, seeing so and so who had passed away. Like she'll ask about this like person who has passed that she's never met, 'cause passed way before her time, and she's able to connect with them. So a lot of times we can express this in children. So when I started remembering like my gifts, I remember at age 5, there was no clear way for me to express these gifts with anybody. I don't think I had the language or the words, or also, the knowing to do that, that it was safe to do that, right? Also, I grew up in a divorced household. My dad was always in the picture, but I grew up with my mother. And on my mom's side, that's not something we really talked about. So, I mean, at age 5, what do you really know, right? Like, you don't have the words for what you're seeing. You don't really know. And a lot of times it causes fear and distress because you're like, what is this thing I'm seeing? And nobody else sees it. And coming back to embracing my gifts have always showed up in different moments of my life. So I remember being age 5 as the first time and really using them. And then they would come again and activate like every 5 to 7 years. I feel like they would make their presence known for me to use them. And I would say all the way through kind of college, out of college, I lived with my best friend. And every time she wasn't, we lived in this apartment where the bell didn't work. The landlord told us the bell didn't work. But every time I was there by myself, the bell would go off and I would go downstairs and open the door and there was nobody there. That happened to me several times, to the point that I was just like, what is going on? I ended up having a conversation with a friend of a friend who kind of was in tune to kind of the other side and really shared with me more protection rituals, like saying, you're probably a light source and people are coming to share things with you or do things. Just like, here are tools to protect yourself. It was never really tools to develop myself. It was more about protection. And that's what I really started to do in like my early 20s, when I knew my psychic gifts were really, when I was really paying attention to them and knowing them were there. But all my friends and family members could tell you that I knew things about them that they hadn't shared with me, or I would tell them things about themselves, their future self, like their future self would talk to me. And I would tell them something about themselves that later on happened. Or I would have dreams about like some of my friends and family members being pregnant, and I would already know the sex, and I would share that with them. And then they would tell me, hey, by the way, I'm pregnant and this is the sex. Like, how did you know? And like all these different kind of things that throughout the years, I'm like, wow, this is so beautiful. But I want to bring us back to your gifts and knowing your gifts, or at least starting to get an inkling of them. And I really want to bring you back to embracing your inner child, right? So that childlike curiosity, that childlike imagination that we have to really connect and really not question things, right? Like we're kind of in tune, children are in tuned with that frequency. So what I invite you to do, if you can, if you really want to tune in to see if you have any mystical gifts, right? Because gifts look like in many different forms, right? Is really connect with your intuition, really connect and bring your childlike imagination, that curiosity, and really let go of any programming. So from the ages of 0 to 12, again, our gifts, but then also during that time is when we have the most programming that's happening. So it's familial programming, ancestral programming, societal programming, name it, right? Like it's when we really start to pick up things on how people want us to be, or hiding things about ourselves, or you kind of name it. Society wants to tell you need to do things a certain way. So our gifts start to get masked. with programming. Again, going back to the onion experience I gave on the last episode, right? Like we start to think of us like a beautiful seed or beautiful kind of bud inside of a flower, and the bud is all of our gifts. And then you have all the petals, right? And as the petals bloom, like you can see the bud, you can see the inside. And if you strip away all the petals, you can back to down to the bud. And that's what we really need to do, is get back down to that seed, get back down to that bud, so we can start to really look at ourselves in a way and really understand the synchronicities that are happening in the world, the synchronicities that are happening in our life, and really start to get curious and start to put the pieces together and seeing if there's a thread, a lined thread of different things that have happened in your life to really uncover and discover the gifts, the mystical gifts that you may have. And a lot of times when we think of our chakra system, right? So hopefully you're familiar with the chakra system. Maybe we'll get into that in another episode. But the chakra system is the energy centers in our bodies, and they all activate different parts of glands, organs, different things that they're connected to. So when you start to think of your chakra system and your energy centers, I want you to start thinking of maybe there's different aspects that are blocked, and that's the reason why you're not able to see your gifts or express your gifts. So the highest form of expression, or the highest form of, kind of being a human and being in this world and really kind of honoring who we are, is living our most authentic self. And before that, there's love, right? So when we're able to see ourselves with love and compassion and curiosity and like this childlike way, we're able to tap into really see where our gifts are and how they're showing up. And if you want to kind of embrace that gift and really hone in on that gift, it's like anything else. It's practice. Every athlete, think of Kobe Bryant. He didn't become the GOAT of our time because he was just sitting down watching TV all day. Like he practiced every single day, right? He practiced his craft, right? And got better with the gifts that he had. So think of it like that, like anywhere, like a guitarist or a singer. The way that they activate their gifts and the way that they become better at their gifts is by one, using their gifts. By two, it's by practicing. By three, is by being seen and allowing your gifts to be seen. And then you start to really unlayer that onion and get back to the middle, or that bud or that flower, or however you want to see it. And you're able to get back to that core of who you are in the center, right? Because when you're able to live in your most authentic self and embody that frequency and embody the frequency of your gifts, you're able to just express yourself in a way that feels so delicious to you, right? So when we're thinking about embodying the frequency of your gifts, what does that mean for you? So that's the invitation that I have for you today. What does it mean for you to embody your gifts if you give yourself permission to do that? How is that going to make you feel? Are you going to feel wonderful and beautiful and expressive? And then the other shadow side to that, because you're going to learn today, this girl loves shadow work, is the shadow of not embracing your gifts. So the programming and all these things, what are ways that maybe you've been refrained from using your gifts? Who told you it was not okay to express yourself? Or if there's any underlining blocks, like, fear of being seen, or fear of not being loved, or feeling like you're going to be removed from your family, or etc. Right? So there's all these different things that add to that expression of your gifts. So I invite you to grab a journal or meditate, and we will get into some embodiment work as well on this podcast to embody all these different ways and these rituals and these devotions that you can do to start unlocking that. So I have like 12 different journals, one for every different thing. I have a journal for manifesting. I have a journal for shadow work. I have an art journal where I can just express myself. There's no lines on the paper. I can just draw it out. I have a journal to express my words. My business has its own journal, so it can express itself since it has its own voice. And invite you to grab a journal or a piece of paper or your phone, if you're a digital journaler, and start to just ask yourself, what are the things that come so naturally to me? What are those gifts, right? Does it have to be mystical? And if they are mystical gifts, start to kind of tie that thread. If I were to express these gifts, how would they look and how would they make me feel? And on the shadow side, have I been blocked from using these gifts? And if so, why, by whom, what, where? And just get curious and allow kind of your consciousness, your divination, your embodiment to really come through, that channel to come through and automatic write, right? Hopefully you know what automatic writing is. And if you don't, it's just really getting pen to paper with no thoughts and allowing just, for you to write and see what comes through. You can also do this through voice notes. I love personally using voice notes as well as a way to channel myself and journal, because it's my freest form of expression. So, whether that's through a journal, on your phone, on paper, or through recording yourself and really listening to that, I invite you to discover your gifts. What are the gifts that you can bring to make your life more delicious, to be, a gift of yourself and to the collective, or to your journey, or maybe on how you express yourself in terms of how you work in your career. How can you use those gifts, right? And not every mystical gift is meant to be used in a mystical way, or it being a spiritual guide or a soul guide, right? Some of us are meant to embody these gifts and serve in different ways. So you have people who have mystical gifts that serve as lawyers and politicians and artists and, nurturers and mothers and fathers and all the different things. There's no right or wrong way to do this and express those gifts. You just have to express them, because if you don't, they will show up in your body energetically and they live in your body. So I invite you today, take out that journal and express your gifts and tune into the frequency of them, because they need to be heard and they need to be felt. All right, that's what I have for you today. I'm looking forward to connecting with you on our next episode. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel by clicking here somewhere, anywhere. I'm not sure. This is new to me. Also subscribing to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you haven't done so already, follow me on Facebook or Instagram, jessicadiana.so. And I look forward to connecting with you further. Have a good day. Cheers. Bye. And I forgot to clap on the first one.